It's not going to blow up on you, so don't get distracted. Stay with your canner. While I was editing some of this video, I deleted some of my video footage, so I had to re-record the first part of it, so sorry about that. Today I'm going to be pressure canning our leftover Thanksgiving ham with Great Northern beans. I'm going to be pressure canning them in pint-sized jars for 75 minutes, and it's going to be at the PSI suggested for my altitude. So I'll show you what you're going to need. These rings, I have 6 of them, regular size. Flats, 6 of them, regular size. Water bubble or air bubble popper. A little thing of white vinegar. My ham is over here where you can't see it. 6 pint-sized jars. A funnel. A 1/2 cup measuring cup. And a pound, I think this is. Yeah, pound of beans, 16-ounce bag of beans. I've rinsed my beans and I've picked through them and got all of the broken beans or the discolored beans out of here and discarded those. So with my rinsed beans, I'll get 1/2 a cup of beans per pint. And again, these are not soaked, they're just rinsed and picked through. Next, I'll add my ham. I'm just breaking this ham up with my hands. You can cut it, chop it, however you want to. I'm just breaking it apart with my hands and adding some into each jar. That's about enough for me. I am breaking this ham up into sort of even pieces. Each one of my jars are filled with beans and ham. I'm going to top them off, leaving a 1-inch headspace. Air bubbles. Get your air bubbles out. You can use a butter knife for this. Get all those air bubbles out. Once you get your air bubbles out, you may need to top off your headspace again just to make sure your headspace is still at 1 inch. I have one jar where the headspace dropped down a little, 1 or 2. So I'll top those off with my boiling water. More than 2. Once each of my jars are topped off with the boiling water, I'm going to take my paper towel and my vinegar and wipe off the rims of each of my jars. Now you're going to put your flats on each of your jars. Now put your rings on. Just finger tight. You don't have to bear down on them. Just finger tight. My canner's up to boiling, so I'm going to put each one of these in my canner. Once I've put my jars in the canner, I'm going to put the lid on. Once I get the lid on, I'm going to let the pressure build up until steam comes out of this vent for 10 minutes. And you want a steady steam for 10 minutes. I have a steady vent now, so I'm going to set my timer to 10 minutes. And I'm going to let that steady vent for 10 minutes. I am doing this with a Presto canner, pressure canner, and it has a pressure gauge. Some canners don't have the pressure gauge, and you go by the jiggle of the weight. You do you, boo-boo. I'm going to use my pressure gauge. And for my elevation, I want my pressure gauge to get to 11 pounds of pressure. My timer is going off. So I'll place my weight on. And I'm going to turn the temperature down a little bit and wait for my gauge to reach that 11 pounds of pressure. If you notice your pressure gauge move past the recommended for your altitude, just turn your heat down just a little bit more to adjust it, and it's fine to go a little over. It's not okay for it to drop under. So I'm going to adjust my temperature now. You can see I'm right in that sweet spot, right between 11 and 12 pounds. That's for my altitude. Now that my pressure canner has reached 11 pounds of pressure, I'm going to turn my heat down to 2 on my stove. Your stove may be different, but the idea is to keep the heat just right so your pressure canner stays right at where it needs to be for your altitude. You don't want it to drop below. If it drops below, you've got to start all over and start your time all over. Once it gets to the pressure it needs to be, you can start your timer, and my timer is going to be for 75 minutes. I was very nervous about canning when I first started. So I first started with water bath canning. Jellies and things like that were easy to do. That got me more comfortable, and I pressure canned, and the first thing I pressure canned was bone broth. It's easy to do, and it got me used to how to use my canner. The biggest advice is when you get your pressure canner, read the booklet that comes with your pressure canner. From the front page to the last page, read every bit of it and get a good understanding of how your pressure canner works. My pressure canner, which I said was a Presto, in the booklet that came with it, it said to do a test run with just water without putting any jars or anything into your pressure canner. And I did that to see how the pressure canner works, to check how the steam should come out. I did all of that before I ever started canning. So make sure you read the booklet that comes with your canner and familiarize yourself with your canner and how it works. Secondly, if you're scared of pressure canning, it's not very scary, it's not hard to do, and it's not going to blow up on you if you follow the rules set for your canner. the most important things for me is don't jack with it. Once it's building pressure, don't try to open it. Don't take your weight off. Don't do anything to your pressure canner once it's starting to build pressure. The only thing you should do is lower or raise the temperature of your stovetop to keep your pressure where it needs to be for your gauge. I will not open this pressure canner until the pressure is all the way down to 0, and still then I will let the pressure canner sit for maybe 10 minutes before I even take the weight off. So just let it do its thing. Stick with your pressure canner. Don't go answer the door or go answer the phone when your pressure canner is under pressure and it's doing its thing. You don't want to get distracted. You want to be able to hear your pressure canner, and you want to be able to check that gauge and make sure that it's not going too high or too low while it's canning. So don't get distracted. Stay with your canner. Now that my timer has went off and I'm still at 11 pounds of pressure, I'm going to turn my stove off. I'm not going to touch anything, I'm not going to push anything, not going to pull anything, not going to remove anything. Just turning the temperature off. I will let that pressure gauge drop down to 0. Now that my pressure gauge is down to 0, I will take my weight off. And I will let it continue to cool down until there's no more steam coming out of the pressure canner. Alright, my canner's been sitting here a while. The pressure is at 0. There's no more steam coming out of the vent. So it's time to open it up and check out what's inside. I'm going to pull these jars out and set them on a towel. I don't want them to touch on the towel, that way they can cool easily. I'll leave some space in between them. And that's it. Now I'll let those sit there overnight and cool off. I'm not going to touch them, don't flip them, turn them, do anything to them. Just let them sit there overnight and cool off. And then they'll be ready to put on your shelf. Now I'm going to clean up my kitchen.